You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show, the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. Doesn't appear that we have any new callers today, and my stupid thing isn't working, so let me fix that. All right, I think we're up and rolling. Beer Cheese, what's going on?
Hey, Ryan, Beer Cheese Benny here. I just want to say, you got me through my 16-hour drive from South Carolina to Wisconsin and then also back. And by the way, being back up there, I had to go back up for my grandpa's funeral. But being back up there, I am reminded that I'm so grateful I don't live there anymore. It was freaking negative something.
You came at the worst possible time.
There, and I was like, this is ridiculous, dude. And now I'm back here in South Carolina, and it's, 40 degrees. Pretty nice. Anyways, I want to talk about the D-line. I really am starting to think that in the draft, we need to target not only the edge, but we need to target our interior.
Oh, it's very funny that you said that. I just finished tomorrow's episode, and that's basically how the podcast ended. But we'll save that for tomorrow.
Guys like Kenny Clark, who are just really just not performing the way they need to, and really we didn't get what we wanted. We needed more out of our defensive line. And I think, you think about, I don't know, what was it, 2016? Where Ted Thompson, what was it, Shields went down, week one, and we did nothing. We were just like, yeah, we're okay with what we got. And then we were relying on freaking Ladarius Gunter, right? When freaking Antonio Cromartie was sitting there waiting to be signed by a team. So my thing is you can't stand pat with what's going on right now. And maybe Halfley, now that he's here, he's going to have more of an influence on telling Gutekunst and the rest of 1265 what needs to be done. But I really think we need to focus on this D-line. We need to have the depth to have a good rotation and, guys that are going to get the job done, man. You just cannot sit there and then look at what's happening on the D-line and say, yeah, we want to run it back with this. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think I'm really hoping that, if anything, the Packers draft a interior defensive lineman or an edge rusher. It's so tough when you do these mock drafts because, there's so many players that are pretty good that are available, by the time the Packers get around to their first-round pick.
Part 2.
Anyways, as I was saying, there's so many good players available, by the time, we get around to it, it's for me, it's so tough, who do you pick, It's and I don't know what the Packers are thinking. If I knew what the Packers are thinking, at least if I knew, yeah, we want to, target this position in the first round, it would kind of make it a little bit easier, but I don't know what they're going to do, but, and all these consensus big boards are saying, oh, we're going to do, all these other mock drafts are saying, oh, the Packers are going to pick a corner, the Packers are going to pick an edge. But it's I never believe those because it always seems to be completely out of left field what Gutekunst does. He'll draft an offensive tackle or something. But I just think there's so many options, and I think this is the year that you have to target D-line. And I honestly don't even mind if, we go first round interior and then second round edge or vice versa. But I have a feeling we're going to go D-line first, and then we're going to go wide receiver in the second, and then probably we'll go back to D-line in our 3rd round pick and maybe even move up. But it all depends really on what they do free agent-wise and trade-wise. So I guess we're just playing a waiting game. You know, the closer we get to the draft, I guess the better idea that we'll have of kind of what they're going to do. So, yeah, that's all I want to say is that the Packers really cannot stand pat with what's going on with their D-line and also the wide receiver, situation. You gotta bring in a veteran. You really do. So hopefully that happens. But let me know what you think. Go Pack, go.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, part of what I talk about tomorrow is one of the main reasons I think corner and defensive line, defensive tackle are the biggest ones have to do with the fact that I'm less convinced they're going to do something about that in the offseason. Whereas edge, I would be stunned if they do nothing. Wide receiver, I'm not as confident, but it feels like they're probably going to do something. We'll see who's all out there and what the options are. Like you said, the biggest thing is we got to wait and see what happens. And as guys get cut, and that's for the Packers too, which free agents get re-signed, which players potentially could be released. That's another thing we haven't talked about yet. We might do that, 2 days. We'll see. That'll give us an idea of who's on the team. Now we got to look at who's available. We got to look at who's possible trade candidate, what the Packers end up doing, and then we'll have a better idea. And even then, we won't know. I mean, they can go out and get 2 edge rushers. Like I said before, we got Zadarius, and then we got Preston, and we ended up drafting Rashawn. So it's not impossible that they solve a problem, quote unquote, and then still end up going after it. But when you look at the options, there's a good amount of defensive tackles that should be available around that range. So it just, to me, that's the one that stands out. If you were, the comment I made tomorrow, if you were to ask me today what position are the Packers going to draft in the first round, my guess would be defensive tackle. I mean, like you said, it could be absolutely anything. Offensive line, wide receiver, edge rusher, corner, defensive tackle, interior, certainly less than 50%, but the highest odds that I would put would be, right now, defensive tackle.
Hey, Ryan, Denver from California.
What's up?
My opinion on the corner situation is it's not as important anymore because we've seen that both Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney are capable of high-end safety play. Obviously, they stopped throwing deep on X, so for a lot of the season, right? So that was pretty convenient. But even there were stretches in there where we saw pretty high-end play from Evan Williams. Yeah, that was in the first few weeks, and then he tapered off after his injury, he had a concussion. But at least we've seen a couple games where he actually has high-level play. But what this defense wants to be, it wants to be a cover 3 and cover 1 with the center field safety, right? And when you have somebody like X that can cover the entire field like that, it makes it to where you don't need the high-end safety play or a high-end corner play like we've seen, especially if we're doing like last year where you ended up seeing a lot of cover 2, a lot more than what they actually wanted. And I think it was specifically to deal with the corner situation, right? So if they can't find the right corners for next year, they're just gonna rock the cover 2. And if they find, let's say they get somebody like DJ Reed and they trust Valentine or Nixon on the outside, they might do some man coverage and do some more of the cover 1. If they need to do the cover 2, they might stick with the cover 2. But I think I don't think it's as like desperate as a situation because you have X to actually provide a safety blanket. And yeah, you've seen a couple plays given up, but like we were one of the best deep field, or, deep defense, I guess. I don't know how to say it. Oh, deep passing defenses. There we go. But anyways, we'll see. If we got a guy, we can play closer to what Hasley wants. But I'm not fine with the corner group. We need something, but I don't think it's as crazy desperate with having X back there, because he's the X factor. Go Pack Go.
Yeah, and this is another major topic I talked about tomorrow is mostly corner and defensive tackle. I think most of the fan base is very content with corner. I'm absolutely not. I think we kind of got lulled into sleep with the belief that we have a better situation than we do because the last couple weeks the corners didn't really get picked on very much. I'm not convinced. I don't think we have any good corners. I think corners are massively important, and the other issue that I bring up in a little bit more detail tomorrow is the idea that pass rush isn't just a function of pass rush, it's a function of coverage. And if you are better at coverage, your pass rush will improve. And if you're not as good in coverage, it won't. And one of the issues with being really good on deep passing is that the only real option is shorter passing, and shorter passes take less time. And with passes taking less time, the quarterback holds the ball less time, which means there's going to be less pressure. So, having the ability to cover underneath and really lock guys down at any depth of the field is going to be critically important for a lot of reasons, not just coverage, but for pass rush. And I just don't think we have good corners. I don't think we have a single good corner on the team. I think we have 2 number 2s and a bad slot. That's kind of where we're at right now. So I guess agree to disagree on that.
Hey, Ryan, Bear Cheese Benny here.
Yo.
I was thinking about the whole Jaire situation, and now it's just apparent that they're just going to move on, and I'm okay with it. But I really do think you need to trade him, man. You cannot just cut him.
Well, I mean, that's not really up to the Packers. You know what I mean? It's not really a decision. It's whether or not he has any value, because it's going to be his value minus his cost. That's going to be the problem, and he has a high cost, and teams may not be willing to touch his contract, and the only way for teams to take him on would be if he doesn't have that contract, which would be us cutting him. That's the only way they would touch him. Now, I don't know. I would hope that there's some value there, but again, it's not up to the Packers. It's it's up to the whether the teams actually want him on his current contract.
I think you need to get some more draft capital, especially if you can get it like 3rd through 7th round or whatever, 3rd through 5th round. And then then you just build up in the draft, maybe pick a corner, which I think we're going to do. And I think, we can do something like we did last year with getting McKinney and Jacobs, guys that are, we're on in an unfortunate situation with the teams they were on and just bad teams. Maybe get like a Darius Slayton or, I don't know who else is out there, but I can't think of the dude on the Saints. Just an idea though, but you really got to just think about these kind of things. But I really think our corner room last year wasn't that bad. Honestly, they really stepped up, and so that kind of makes me believe that they would look better if the D line was beefed up. So hopefully we can do that. I truthfully believe that Gutekunst is going to get free agent, and I think he's going to make a trade. I think we'll get Max Crosby, man. I really do. And if we don't, we'll get somebody else that's kind of like a mid-tier, a guy that's a little bit more productive than our guys. But, I say we move on from Slayton, PJ Slayton. There's so many other guys in the draft that can be, like, way better than him. And, I'm not opposed to getting a linebacker in the draft, only because think about Wilson and McDuffie. Like, you probably keep one or the other. And so you're going to need to have a guy at the linebacker position that can fill, like, a rotational role. And you're going to want to get somebody that can, A, be in coverage, and B, be a good tackler and read the plays. So maybe we pick up a linebacker in, like, the 5th 6th round. Some guy, maybe like a steal. I mean, hopefully we can get a steal, but yeah, I don't know, man. Lots of things that we have to do, but I think we're at this very moment in time, we're in the right position to be having these problems, just with the way the draft is lining up. So, let me know what you think. See ya.
Yeah, definitely not opposed to that. I think, they're in a much better linebacker position than they've been in a long time. But I also think that there are some guys that the Packers are probably ready to try to find replacements for. And that is probably McDuffie and Eric Wilson. I think, the Packers are always trying to churn over the roster and get rid of the guys that are kind of into good, not great. And some of these guys, they linger for a while, but after a while, you're constantly pushing people in there to see if somebody can push them for that job, because you're going to have to move on eventually. You get tired of these one-year contracts over and over and over again. And I think they're kind of in that boat. I tend to agree. I'm a little torn on which one they'll keep if they do end up doing one or the other. It's an easy decision for me. I'd rather get rid of McDuffie, but the Packers have always seemed to like McDuffie more. I don't know. This last year was a little rough for him, so maybe the Packers kind of saw that and would rather have Eric Wilson, because he, for one thing, when they made him our Mike linebacker, holy crap, was he good. And then for the other thing, he's our special teams guy. So if I had to choose, go and find that third piece. They've got Quay, they've got Edgerrin. Find out, get a ideal third linebacker for Hafley. And, like you said, I don't think it has to be because you're not looking for a jack of all trades. You've kind of got your 1 and 2. So if you need a strong side linebacker or whatever it is you're looking for to kind of round this thing out. I don't know if that's a Cody Simon from Ohio State, Danny Stutzman, maybe. Some kind of mid-round options. But, all right, let's take a break. We got Joe the janitor.
Hey, Ryan. It's Joe, the janitor.
What's up, man?
From Connecticut. How's it going, bud?
Good.
So, it's been a while. Just wanted to call in. A couple things I wanted to touch on. I believe everyone has touched on at least the Kendrick thing. It was definitely a trash halftime show. But as far as Kendrick Lamar being around for the next 10 years, I believe his name is going to be known for years. But
10 maybe.
But he's been around for probably about 15 years now and been pretty famous. I think he's trash. I hate his voice. But, yeah, Kendrick Lamar definitely is probably one of the top 10 rappers in the world, if you were to ask many people. Again, I think he's trash. Another thing I wanted to touch on with the Kendrick.
Well, first of all, I'm kind of talking about after his career. How long are we talking about him? It's kind of a weird way to say it because the Rolling Stones are still touring, but I'm looking at like the Rolling Stones, kind of their heyday is the 70s. So 50 years later, I don't like them, but 50 years later, everybody knows the Rolling Stones. So I had said 30 years. I don't think so. This is the peak of his career, so I'm not going to pretend like it's still like, okay, now it's 10 years later. No, I'm saying after this little flare up, I have no idea who Kendrick Lamar was. So, the fact that he was around, this is kind of his moment right now. His moment is going to die off, and then there's going to be another whole batch that come through. At that moment, let's give it 25, 30 years. Is Kendrick Lamar going to be known by like 20-year-olds? The answer, I can almost promise you, is no. After he's dead, are people going to know Kendrick Lamar? People are going to know the Beatles. They're going to know the Rolling Stones. They're going to know Metallica. They're obviously going to know Tupac and Biggie. You think 50 years from now, this dude's dead? Maybe. Kendrick Lamar, people still going to be talking about Kendrick Lamar, one of the great rappers. People now don't even like Kendrick Lamar. I don't know anyone that likes Kendrick Lamar aside from they're into this whole drama thing. Who likes Kendrick Lamar? Everybody that's even calling in are like, yeah, he's not for me, but as far as I know, this whole beef thing is the reason why Kendrick Lamar is even relevant. So, again, give it a little time. Wait for this whole stupid thing to die off, whether that's a year or two from now, I don't know. Somebody else will be the new hot rapper. At that point, start the clock, give it 30 years. Is Kendrick Lamar going to be a thing? No. In fact, it looks like he became a thing in like 2015. So, I mean, I know that's 10 years ago, but he's still kind of just starting his career. Looks like he did a song with Taylor Swift in 2015, and that's kind of what started this whole thing. I'm just looking at when he would have topped the charts, and it's like 2015, and then looks like 2017, and then 2024, I think. And again, and this is what somebody had called in about earlier, he was kind of a thing for a while and then disappeared, and his career got revived by this whole Drake beef, kind of forcing him back into the scene. Oh crap, I think the hockey thing started. Anyways, I was watching the hockey thing. I forgot what we were talking about. Continue.
Lamar thing. Kendrick Lamar has already played at the Super Bowl. If everyone remembers.
No one remembers.
2 years back, I think it was Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, Eminem. During that performance, Kendrick Lamar also had a performance. So you guys can look that up.
It's kind of the point, though. Like, it's all these guys and then somebody that nobody knows. So, yeah.
That was probably one of the better halftime shows.
That was good.
Of, the last 10 years, in my opinion. And yeah, Kendrick Lamar did show up with all those other legends that I just named. I believe Snoop Dogg was there. Like I said, 50 Cent, Dre, Eminem, just to list a few. There were probably more. But I'll touch on another thing. Like, I forget who keeps calling in and talking about the artist NF. But I will say NF is good. But I don't know about halftime show, famous type of performance for him. I have seen him personally twice in Connecticut in smaller venues. It was great probably about 5 years ago, maybe like 3 years ago. So they weren't recent, but he is coming this year, and he's coming to the casino, and the casinos in Connecticut are where we have our biggest place to hold an indoor venue, and for him to go to the place I saw him at in Bridgeport, this little amphitheater, to him selling out the casino, which I'm not going to because I'm not spending $200-something a ticket when I think I spent about 40 or 50 the last couple times I saw him. But yeah, he is a great artist. Definitely not a Super Bowl halftime show, but if you haven't listened to his
3-minute monster got him, but boy, I love hearing all about Kendrick. I tell you what.
Howdy, this is Jared, the Uber driver from Texas.
Yo.
And I was just calling about, the whole chip the ball thing, whatever.
I was nervous.
Just trying to implement more technology into the game. How about we call up the guys who did sports science back like probably 7 to 12 years ago.
I remember that.
Because, man, I remember them doing stuff with, like, Ray Lewis breaking a door.
Yeah, I remember the door thing,
doing stuff with, like, sumo wrestlers, doing all the data
martial artists were dope.
That. Let's call that dude up, and whoever was part of his team, just get that in there. And then that also brought me down memory lane, where there were those funny ads. I don't know what they were promoting. Maybe it was fantasy football, but where a bunch of players just do stupid crap, like catch a ball through the wall and be like, pick me. And if those are so funny to me. So yeah, like, also today's my birthday, so
happy birthday.
31st birthday to me. But yeah, just let's get some tech guys, data analytic guys in the room with Goodell, with all those people, and show them, like, make the game better. All right, go Pack, go.
Well, that's the thing. It would take investment, and the investment isn't just the technology, because I don't think the people in the room know what to do, right? I mean, they can theorize just as well as we can theorize, but what they'd have to do is they'd have to pay people like that, or, you know, different scientists and a bunch of other people to start coming up with this stuff, and you'd have to try things and practice things. And I mean, it would be a big undertaking. There's no doubt about it. It would cost a ton, and it'd be a big time investment, but I'm just saying, I think it would be worth it, even if, you know, maybe nothing materializes and we can't quite make it work. But I'm sure if you get the right people and you're willing to, you know, put in a certain amount of investment, it would certainly be doable. You know, and I certainly wouldn't say it would be easy. I don't know how many footballs they have in a game. They got a ton of them. You'd have to chip every single one of the balls, but I don't know. I mean, that's the whole point. I don't have the answers. I don't know exactly how you would do it, but you'd have to, like you said, find some really smart people that are kind of halfway already in the industry. You know, get some different engineers and let them figure it out. That's what they do. You know, they're technology people that figure things out. That's their job title. So, but I don't know if they want to do that, and I doubt they have a ton of engineers on the payroll. So I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take to get that across. That's where things like the XFL are cool, because that's sort of they get to be the guinea pigs, because they have to do crazy stuff, because their sole focus is how can I attract as many people as possible. Where as I said, the NFL is not necessarily in that mode. So, you know, the XFL, UFL, whatever it is that still exists these days, I have no idea if there even is anything. I don't even know. They're the ones, and if I was the NFL, I would try to find ways to partner with them, because it's in your interest. I mean, if they're willing to take on a lot of the shoulder a lot of that load, as far as the cost would largely be on them. Obviously, implementing it and testing it would be on them. If the NFL could help in some kind of a way, maybe even a little bit financially, I wouldn't even hate it if it semi-subsidized or you know, work out some kind of a deal where they're part owner. They invest in your business, and the payoff is essentially you're a feeder. It's not just the players that you potentially could feed to us, but probably not. It's more so the ideas, the technology, all the different, you know, we come up with ideas and we're like, hey, you know, it would be cool. Why don't you try this, and let them do it? Then you don't have to screw with it. They'll pass over all the data, see if it's any good, and you can implement it if you want to implement it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Howdy, this is Jared, the Uber driver from Texas again. And I was just calling because I just heard on the Packernet After Dark talking about conspiracy theories and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's something else with a lot of people who believe in these conspiracy theories. I watch a lot of videos that kind of on YouTube that, you know, there's a whole lot of people in the year of our Lord 2025 that believe the Earth is flat.
Sure.
Or at least they say they do. And that is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where, you know, you don't actually understand the thing, but you are the most, I guess, what's that word? Wow. Man, calling in sometimes just my brain parts happen, man. But you're the most vocal or the most confident about what you're saying, even though you don't understand the field that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And if it tickles your fancy, man, there's a YouTuber called Professor Dave Explains, and he does teach stuff on his channel, but he also does a lot of debates and or debunkings of whether it's like flat Earth or some other things. And I think you would just like how he debunks people, because he just kind of is short with them. Like, if he knows that they're trying to just bullshit him,
yeah, he's not going to deal with that.
Out, and they typically never have a good answer for it, ever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, still my birthday, February 19th. Go Pack, go.
Yeah, so Dunning-Kruger, I got the AI to kind of... It's always good to have AI on hand, even if you kind of understand it, because it's one of those things where, kind of like you had, which happens to me all the time, you know what it is, but it's a lot harder to explain, and you don't realize that it's hard to explain. Like, I know it, but I don't know how to say it. It's kind of douchey, but it's also true. Essentially, it's that competent people know they have limitations, and incompetent people tend to overestimate their own competence. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias where people with low ability at a task overestimate their ability. Essentially, it's a phenomenon where incompetent people tend to overestimate their own competence, fail to recognize their own lack of skill, and fail to recognize genuine skill in others. That sounds a lot like a lot of people on social media. So if you ever get annoyed, just remember that is the sign of an incompetent person. Competent people tend to underestimate their own competence and often assume that others have equal understanding. Here's a breakdown of key aspects. It's about a lack of metacognition, which is the ability to recognize one's own limitations. Because they're unskilled, they lack the skill to know they're unskilled. It was identified by David Dunning and Justin Kruger in a 1999 study. It applies to specific skills, not general intelligence. It is kind of funny because it's essentially saying that there is a requisite amount of skill to be able to have the skill to understand that you're unskilled. And if you're unskilled, you don't have the requisite skill to understand that you're unskilled, and so that you think that you're freaking genius about everything. Which is really unfortunate. It's very unfortunate because it essentially is going to be, I mean, you have hyper competent people that know that they're competent and will speak competently about things, but ultimately what it means is pretty much all of the hyper incompetent people don't really recognize their incompetence, and they're very loud, and they want to tell you that they know everything, and it's super annoying. But yeah, that's it sounds correct, doesn't it? Just peruse social media and you hear that. It's like incompetent people tend to overestimate their competence, fail to recognize their own lack of skill, and fail to recognize genuine skill in others. It's like, yep, that is that's who I hang out with on social media. And I think I recognize the problem now. Why don't we take our final break? We got 4 more calls here. Drew, Beer Cheese, and TJ from Alabama. 3 callers, 4 calls. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Brian. It's Drew from Green Bay.
Yo.
So I saw that T. Higgins is rumored to be getting the franchise tag from the Cincinnati Bengals. And that'll take a wide receiver off the market. Yep. And I think that, also impacts other wide receivers like Godwin and the other top guys. So I don't think that the Packers ever really wanted to go after a top name wide receiver anyways. Yeah. Even though a lot of fans want a wide receiver one. Gutekunst basically said that the top teams in the playoffs don't rely on wide receiver one. He doesn't seem to want to build the team that way. And so I don't expect to take a wide receiver high in the draft or go after a free agent, high-name free agent. Probably get more of a depth guy. And I think basically how we want to build our team is kind of how we had it when we won the Super Bowl the last time, where we basically had, you could argue, 3 wide receiver twos. I mean, was Greg Jennings a wide receiver one? Maybe, but when he went to Minnesota, he certainly didn't play like it. So, and at that time, Jordy Nelson, James Jones, those guys were young yet. They weren't at that point what we remember them becoming. They were good, but I wouldn't say they were wide receiver one. And then, just to kind of bring that into the Packers, we don't really have many players that we could potentially franchise, but the one guy would be McManus if we can't get a deal done. Now, we probably wouldn't use the big one that gives you a first and a second if someone, or whatever it is, if someone signs them, but It's called the transition tag we'd probably use. And unfortunately, special teams, they are all categorized into one position. So he'd be $5.83 million for the transition tag, which would be fourth among all kickers. Now, if we did use the normal franchise tag, that would make him the number one paid kicker. That's why I don't think we'd use that. But I think we'll get a deal done. But we are looking at him in the draft, so that's kind of interesting. But what do you think? All right, bye.
Well, yeah, that is a good point about his comments as far as wide receiver. I do think that there is an interest in maybe helping the wide receivers and trying to find stuff. I don't think it's the most dire issue for the Packers. But I don't know. I do think that they're probably going to do something. I couldn't tell you. I'll say this. Either they do something in free agency or they do something in the draft for wide receiver. Doesn't have to be. Sometimes the chips just don't fall that way. We've seen that, especially with wide receiver, where they showed interest in a lot of people, but they just kept getting taken too early, and so they didn't end up doing anything. But I think it's a need for Gutekunst, but just not a massive priority. As far as kicker, I do think that's a big one, and I agree. I think they're going to get a deal done. That's one thing with the Packers is when they are resolute in getting something done, it almost always gets done. Devontae Adams, that didn't work. That was for pretty unique reasons, that being they weren't sure earlier, and so they didn't give him the contract that they wanted. And then when they decided that they were willing to go all in, including probably overpaying the guy, Devontae basically just said, there's nothing you can do to make me want to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't friggin' like you people, so I'm leaving. And that's the way that went. So, he had the best year of his entire career, and he earned himself a contract. I'm sure he's real happy about it. He's probably going to end up getting more money than he's worth, but the Packers are, I think, determined to bring him back. They're going to offer him what he's worth, and I think he'll take that. So I'm not too worried about that one. As far as them looking, I wouldn't even be surprised if we bring in a kicker. I'd be surprised if we drafted one, honestly, but I'm sure we'll probably bring in kickers and do competitions, because that's the way it always goes, especially when the guy's getting a little up in age. They want to always make sure they have competition and get some people in the building and that whole spiel.
Hey, Ryan, Beer Chief Bang here. Dude, I just had a crazy thought. So, I know, obviously we don't really need a tight end, but, what if it comes to a point in the draft where, there's still, a really good one on board, a good tight end that, can catch the ball, and we just draft one and turn him into a receiver? Because, we already have Kraft, and I still believe Musgrave is really pretty good. It's just going to be Kraft and Musgrave, and then, you got Sims, who occasionally gets in there. It's good for blocking and stuff and whatnot. But, dude, why don't we just get a tight end who's got great hands and can run good routes and turn him into, a receiver? I don't know, man. I'm just listening to you talk about this Helm guy. Maybe that could be the guy. But, honestly, he probably might not be available for some of our picks. He might be off the board, but there's some other ones. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, but I was wondering if you could maybe find a guy like that could low-key be a wide receiver. I don't know if any team's really ever done that. If they have, I just don't know about it, but it could be done, and I think it would be interesting. But that's all I got to say. I'm looking forward to you looking at I put 2 mock drafts up on the Packernet Podcast Facebook. I have so many more, but the 2 that I put up there, I think, are kind of, for me, more of what the Packers might do. I don't know. I always try to, when I'm doing it, I'm, trying to do it, how would the Packers think? You know what I mean? Not, what I would want. How would the Packers think? So, Yeah, man. Really excited for it. See you.
Beercheese, you have an absolute gift from the Lord above. You know that? Your ability to very concretely bring up a point and ask me a question, and I'm ready to answer the question, and then you go on these like mini rants that are way off base, and by the time you say goodbye, I'm sitting here going, what just happened? What are we talking about again? I don't even remember. You are just a treasure. The heck was the tight end thing. Okay. Yes, we got your mock draft. I did do that. I'm hoping you got to listen to it. Look, first of all, nothing's off limits. They could draft a quarterback, they could draft a tight end, a running back, linebacker, punter, kicker, long snapper, to varying degrees, but there's nothing that's just, just kind of the way you phrase it, like, what if? It's like, well, yeah, look, first round, yeah, there's limitations. They're not taking a kicker, a punter, a long snapper, a quarterback. There's a lot of things that they're not going to do in the first round. Once you get far enough in, it legitimately is just best player available. And, there's some considerations above and beyond best player available, but anything is possible. And I say that partially because we don't need to necessarily convert them because we already got two guys. One of the founding principles of this whole draft and develop thing and best player available is that, you're not drafting based on what you're seeing on the roster today because you don't know what future problems you're going to have. You don't know what's going to happen with Musgrave. You don't even necessarily know what's going to happen with Kraft. Things are going to be very different very soon. And so drafting based on today is always going to be problematic because new things will arise and your team is built for yesterday's problems. But as long as you're always taking the best players, you're always putting yourself in the best position to have the best players. And, well, I guess maybe just a better way to put it would be it's the bigger problem is finding good players more so than, we got a lot of good players, just not at the right positions. You know what I mean? That's never really been the problem. So, yeah, if they are going through the draft and they got a stud tight end sitting there in the fourth round and they don't know why he didn't go in the second, they're going to draft him. And that's just the way it goes. And they don't need to, convert him. They could. I'm not saying it's not a thing, and that certainly has happened. Conversions one way to another. Certain guys are just built. There's a lot of tweeners. There's these monster wide receivers / really small tight ends, and they could certainly be viewed in different ways. There's a lot of the smaller tight ends in this draft too that people are probably already speculating. Maybe he's more of a wide receiver than a tight end. I don't know, but I'm just saying that happens all the time. So could it happen? Yeah. I think drafting a tight end is certainly a possibility. Whether or not they want to convert him, I don't know. That's a whole other thing. It depends who they're drafting, I guess, and if he's more of a big receiver than a smaller tight end, which I would have to assume, because I'd always kind of wondered about that whole thing with tight ends and big wide receivers and small. The only thing I could think is, if you're a tight end, you have to block on some level. You might be kind of bad at it. Look, Musgrave's not the best blocker. There are guys that are not really wired for it, but you still have to have that ability. As opposed to, like, if you just have no ability, and I'm never putting you next to a tackle to take on a DN, that's never going to happen. It's a massive liability. Then I would guess at that point, that's when we're just calling you a wide receiver. But I aside from that, I don't know. There's probably some other functional things that would make sense as far as maybe your route tree and stuff like that.
Hey, Ryan, Beer Cheese Benny here.
Yo.
What I was thinking is during the draft, this is what I'm going to do, man. If, teams that I don't like, so NFC North and probably a few other teams, they draft a guy that I wanted the Packers to draft, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to be like, oh, no, he's not going to be very good.
Oh, yeah.
Nope. He won't work for them, and it's not going to work out. I'm gonna be an absolute I don't know what you want to say about that.
Denial?
About it. Let's be like, yeah, no, like, since the Vikings drafted him, he's not going to work out.
That's going to happen, too.
But, no, I don't usually do that. But
I do.
I kind of want to do that this year. It just seems like there's so many guys that could be taken off the board that you're like, man, I wish we could have him. Like, I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot. I personally have just been trying to think about how this is going to go for us. Like, how are we going to attack the draft? Because, like, there's obviously needs multiple areas, and it mostly seems like on defense. But, one, I do not think that we'll go back-to-back picks with a corner. If anything, we go back-to-back picks with a defensive tackle or something like that. I do think that we will go for a wide receiver in like the second. I just think you can't pass the second. I don't think you can really get anybody that's worth it. Of course, unless we get some other picks or something like that. But yeah, dude. The only way, and I'm sure I'm listening to your breaking down the Packers 7-round mock drafts. If we trade back, I'm okay with that as long as, like, with the one mock draft that I sent in the Facebook thing, we traded back with the Rams, but they also gave us pick 126. So, if we do something like that, I'm okay with trading back, but in the first or whatever. But otherwise, I really don't want to do it. If they got the guys there that can be immediate impact players, just take them, man. Just stay at 23. Sticking big, baby. But yeah, man. I'm just gonna be better about other teams getting guys I wanted. So, see you.
Yeah, it's so hard this far out to get that granular with it as far as, what I want to trade back. I do think that there's a lot of guys that are probably going to be available that are just as good. I haven't really nailed it down that much to where it's like, there's these 17 guys that I like or whatever. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of guys that are probably going to be available that I'm going to like on a similar tier. That has nothing to do with the Packers. It's just kind of my opinion on it. But, you look at the whole Jaden Reed thing. We double traded back and picked up a bunch of picks. Stuff like that ended up working pretty cool. It'd be hard to know at this point, to say on February 20th whether trading back is the right decision or not. But I don't know, man. It's we'll just have to see once we get there. You got to see how the draft falls and who's available. And obviously, like we've been saying this whole time, we got to see what happens with free agency because, there might end up being a pretty big need or not that there's going to be a bigger need, but there might be a more clear picture of what we need. And if that becomes clear, then maybe there's a clear picture of, for example, corner, if there's a run on corners, and it's like Siobhan Revel or something is there 5 picks ahead and, Jade Barron and Ben, Morrison is gone and, Zaria Thomas is good. Like it just went nutso and Revel is kind of quote unquote falling because of, whatever issues that he has. Yeah, I'm just saying that might be an instance where in the moment you're looking at it, assuming we've addressed other issues and this is kind of the one big glaring need at this point. That's where maybe you look at it and go, okay, we might have to move up here. Otherwise, there's probably a good chance that we're not going to need to do that. There's a ton of edge rushers, even though there's probably most of them are probably going to go. Good amount of corners, defensive tackles, lot of stuff that I think is going to be available for us. So, again, it's really hard to really nail down how it's all going to go, but I don't know. It's I think it'll be all right. All right, final call here. TJ from Alabama.
Hey, Ryan, TJ from Alabama.
Yo.
Listen to the pod, listen to the conversation on, NFL being scripted, yada, yada. And I don't feel I need to go down that specific rat hole again. But, I I think you brought it up earlier, the concept of, more often than not, the most simplest answer is the right one.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, the NFL really cares about two things. They care about making money and not losing money.
Yeah.
So anything they can do to make more money and anything they have to do to not lose money in lawsuits and things like that, your whole player safety, concussion protocols, yada, yada, there's a whole bunch of things the NFL would not do other than it's going to cost them more money not to do it than they would do it. Otherwise, they're just out to make money. They're a business. I get it. It seems to me that for the NFL to make money, the most obvious answer is to have an entertaining product. That's why they want more scoring and this, that, or the other thing. And they do things all the time to try to have a more entertaining product. But an entertaining product is not just having the Chiefs win all the time. Or whatever, pick any team. It doesn't matter.
Right.
That's not the most entertaining product. Otherwise, the Harlem Globetrotters would be $1 billion industry unto themselves because they always win.
Yeah.
So, I think the NFL really would prefer to just have truly competitive football. I don't think the NFL in its total is really a big fan of Cleveland being Cleveland.
Right.
Just the really god-awful teams. I don't think that's right. I think they really do prefer parity where every single fan of every single team thinks they got a chance every year. Now, maybe they like the Jets every now and then to be such a train wreck with a lot of eyes on it that's kind of cool. But other than that, I just don't see it. Circling back to the Packers in the North, I think the North is really becoming the model that the NFL would like to see. You got three really good teams that have, their weaknesses and this, that, or the other thing, and they're intrigue. And then you got the Bears. Who cares? The Bears are the Bears. But every off season they've won like 100 off seasons in a row. So clearly you got the Bears that every year is their year, even though they're going to end up being 6-11 again. But I think that's what the NFL would prefer. And I think the NFL would like Max Crosby in Green Bay and Myles Garrett in Detroit, and game on.
Yep.
All right, Ryan. Thanks. Talk to you later.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point, if they were to handpick, like I said, Kansas City would never be their choice of team. Now, you could say, well, they decided it was their team once they became sort of the superstars or whatever. But I mean, if you're going to put your finger on the scale, why would Chicago be so terrible? It's a massive market. You got New York with the Jets and the Giants, both garbage. They've been trying to push LA down our throats my entire lifetime. Nobody in LA cares about football. They're obsessed with putting multiple teams in LA because LA is such a gigantic market. They have to have a huge market there. You know how desperately they want LA to work? And LA teams are terrible. They're all, I mean, you got the Rams. The Rams have been pretty decent. The Chargers are garbage. The Raiders, when they were there, were garbage. It's just these LA teams almost never work out. Nobody ever goes to the games. They would love, if they want a quarterback darling, they would love it to be Herbert. They would love Herbert in LA to be this big thing and for, that to be the darlings along with, the Jets or the Giants and that mega complex, and Caleb Williams in Chicago. Those are the teams that they want to win, and they suck. And Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, people always talk about how Aaron Rodgers got all the calls, and I think that he did. In terms of like seeing similar things with Pat Mahomes, which goes into my thing. Is it because he's a superstar and referees see that and go, ooh, can't touch the superstars? Not because it's a directive from above, but because they're human beings and they have the same reaction I have when you watch a guy like that get hit where it's like, ooh, that's crazy. As opposed to, watching some schlub get hit and you just don't really care. You see Tommy DeVito get laid out and it's just kind of, freaking dork. It's not because they're like, oh man, we got to get this small market Green Bay to win all the Super Bowls. That's the moneymaker right there. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. On top of, like you said, the last thing they want is a scandal. It's why they're so serious about all the gambling. I mean, they go out and do investigation. They don't just say, hey, don't gamble. They're actively investigating all these people. And if they even find out you got an account or this, they freak out. They'll suspend you. They'll do all kind of heavy. They don't want any even thought of the NFL doing things improperly. So yeah, I think it's just people that are upset about the way things go. They see calls that are bad, and again, we all oversee it, right? Because we're looking for it, you see it a lot more often. So we notice the Chiefs getting calls a lot more than we notice our own team getting calls. That's why every single time you watch a game, both fan bases want to talk about the other team's penalties. And both fan bases think that the refs screwed them more than anybody else. Because we're all biased, and we all see what we want to see. I said it before, it's like when you go shopping and you start looking at a certain, like you're looking at, I want to get a Honda Odyssey. Every car on the road suddenly is a Honda. Like, oh, there's a Honda. Oh, there's another one. There's another one. It doesn't matter what the car. It could be something more obscure. It could be a Sentra. It's everywhere. I remember when I was a kid, I think I told you this before, but my brother was like, I don't know, teaching me about IROCs and rally sports and all, the differences between them. I saw them all over the place. They were everywhere. These old 80s cars, So bias is a big part of it. The fact that, bad officiating is an NFL thing, not just a thing that only benefits certain teams. And then the fact that there is an explanation for the fact that we do see certain teams get benefited. And it's exactly what I said it was. All right, I'm out of here. Probably heard the announcement. Time for bed, so I got to go. You guys have a good rest of your night. I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.